Sometimes the world can just feel like a lot. Life brings these challenges that really test our sense of calm, our peace. So today, we're going to explore a really simple story, a quiet idea, about how we can find a little bit of that stillness even when things feel hard. Let's just gently dive in. Let's think about pain and sorrow as the salt of life. It's kind of unavoidable, right? It's just part of the whole human experience. We all get a taste of it. But how much we taste, well, that's where our story really begins.
And some sorrows, they're small. They're the little everyday difficulties, aren't they? Minor disappointments, those frustrations that just bubble up for a second. They sting for a moment, and then they're gone.
But then there are the other times, the hardships that feel just huge, all-consuming, the kind that can feel like they're blocking out the entire sun.
So here's a question to just hold for a moment. What if the bitterness we feel has less to do with the amount of salt and everything to do with the container we put it in? And that question, well, it brings us to an old, simple story, a parable about a mentor and a student, and a really profound lesson that's found in the most ordinary of things.
So just picture this. The scene is simple. An old teacher and a young student who's clearly troubled, and the teacher just calmly asks for a glass of clear water. And then he does something a little strange. He takes a full handful of salt and just stirs it into that small glass until it disappears. He looks right at the student and says just 2 words, "Taste it." So the student takes a sip and immediately has to spit it out. The water is just harsh, awful. The taste is completely overwhelming. Now, without a word, the teacher just smiles gently and guides the student on a quiet walk away from the room and toward the shore of a large, beautiful lake, just shimmering in the light. He takes out the very same amount of salt, another full handful, and he just tosses it out into the vast expanse of the lake, and the salt just vanishes into the water. The difference here, it's everything, isn't it? In the glass, that salt made the water bitter, totally unbearable. That little container was just completely overwhelmed by it. But in the lake, the water was still sweet. It was unchanged. The sheer vastness of the lake just absorbed the salt like it was nothing at all. And this, of course, this is where the real lesson is. The story isn't really about salt and water. It's about us. It's about how we hold our pain. So the salt in the story is pretty clear, right? It's the hardship, the sadness, all those challenges that life is going to put in our path. And the amount of salt, it's pretty much the same for everyone. This is the crucial point. The amount of salts, the thing causing all that bitterness, it was exactly the same both times. The only thing that changed was the size of the container holding it. So the invitation from this story is a really quiet one. It's asking us not to wish for less salt in our lives, but to actually expand the container, to become less like the glass and a whole lot more like the lake. And that, of course, brings us to the most important question of all. How do we actually do that? How do we find that vast, peaceful space inside of ourselves? Well, the path forward isn't really a formula. It's more of a change in direction. It starts when we just stop fighting the salt, when we stop resisting that the pain is there and just acknowledge it without letting it become our whole world. And then we can start to expand our view. We lift our eyes from the bitterness in our own little glass and just see the wider world. The kindness from a stranger, the quiet strength of a tree, the simple fact that the sun still comes up. And finally, we connect with what is vast. Maybe that's nature for you, or a deep friendship, or a purpose that feels bigger than just yourself. Each connection, each moment of looking outward, it adds another drop of water to our container. It helps it grow. And when we start to do this, something really remarkable starts to happen. The salt, it doesn't disappear, but our ability to hold it, that changes everything. And this brings us right back to the mentor's final words to his student. The pain we feel, he explained, depends entirely on the size of the container we put it in. And that's it. That's the simple, final takeaway. Stop being the glass. Let go of that smallness that makes every single grain of salt feel so overwhelming. Become the lake. Because when your heart is vast and open and deep, the hardships of life can just dissolve into you without ever changing the sweetness of who you are. That peace, it's already there. All we have to do is grow.